eating less than ever and your weight still keeps climbing, you're foggy, exhausted, forgetting exactly why you walked into that room. You were told you're stressed, getting older, and that's just the way it is. You're told you're normal. You feel anything but. And after the runaround, merry-go-round, visiting practitioner after practitioner, being told you're normal when you feel anything but, you feel dejected, dismissed, and sometimes pretty much outraged. Something's not right. And it's not your age. And it's not in your head. It may be your hormones. So I promise you in the next 20 minutes that you will understand why your body stopped responding and the order that sets it right. So stay with me. I'm going to tell you about the 5 mistakes that keep menopausal and perimenopausal women stuck and what exactly sets them free. I'm Dr. Lorraine Maita. I'm board certified in internal and integrative medicine, and I have certifications and fellowships in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, occupational and environmental medicine, and functional medicine. And I've had over 30 years experience helping women feel like themselves again. And I didn't learn this just from textbooks. I lived it. In my 40s, I was foggy, exhausted, and I was told I was stressed and that my labs were normal. And I suffered. I'll tell you the whole story a little bit later. But the reason why I do this work is because I suffered and I don't want you to suffer as well. This experience changed the way I practiced. And what I learned was all those different symptoms that you experience, they're about D in menopause or perimenopause. It's not just one symptom at a time and going to a doctor or a practitioner for each and every symptom. It is a system. It's a system that's interconnected. So your weight, your brain fog, and your fatigue are not just 3 problems. They're one system, and the hormones speak to each other. They are a web. So if you touch one, you touch them all. And I tell people it's like baking a cake. If you leave even one ingredient out, it's a flop. And if you put the ingredients in the wrong order, it's also a flop. So fixing one piece at a time in the wrong order is what keeps failing you. And women just blame themselves when they're really not at fault. So let's talk a little bit about what comes into play during perimenopause and menopause. The hormones themselves. Estrogen keeps your cells listening to insulin, and it fuels your brain. It keeps your brain sharp. So when it drops, you get a little foggy and you gain weight. You mostly around the breasts, the hips, and the thighs. But because it's so stressful, you also can get some belly fat. It can cause some hot flashes, night sweats, dry eyes, dry skin, dry vagina. And all these symptoms can show up together, yet they seem separate. The next player is progesterone, and progesterone falls first because it comes when you ovulate. And when you hit your 40s, you start running out of eggs. We're all born with a set number of eggs, and by the time you hit your 40s, you're running out, and the ones that you have left are semi-retired. They're not going necessarily to produce the amount of progesterone that you need to balance the estrogen. So think of estrogen as the hormone of energy and growth, and progesterone is the hormone of peace and calm. It calms anxiety. It balances the growth effects of estrogen so you don't put on the weight. And it promotes deep sleep. So when it drops, you become what they call estrogen dominance. You get anxiety, irritability, impatience, insomnia, growth of the breast, cysts of the breast, tender breast, growth of the uterine lining that causes bleeding and spotting and weight gain. So it's not a pretty picture. When you lose progesterone, you lose your brakes and you lose whatever made you calm and allowed you to sleep. Another big player that is the biggest player of all is cortisol. Is the hormone of, I call it distress. It could be physical, like pain, heat, cold, emotional, like anxiety, depression, OCD, worry. It's not just worry. Stress sometimes is like a program running in the background. It's still going even though you're doing everything else and you're distracting yourself. So when you are distressed for any reason, cortisol will first go up. And this is what causes that belly fat, that muffin top, the rolls that hang over those jeans. It makes you tired but wired, so that you're tired, but you just can't sleep. You can't turn your mind off. You get cravings, and it also breaks down muscle. And muscle is what burns the calories. So when you break down muscle, you have less to burn the calories. And that's yet another reason why you gain weight. However, if you stay stressed for periods of time, cortisol will then start to go low. And that's what burnout is. That's when you're really exhausted and have dark circles under your eyes and you crave salt, not just sugar. Your immune system gets disrupted and you get more frequent infections. And this is also a time when, if you are prone to autoimmune disorders, you get autoimmune disorders. It comes along the 4 Ps: puberty, postpartum, perimenopause, and postmenopause, because this is when your hormones really fluctuate and change, and that is a big distress on your body. So when your cortisol goes really low, it affects your memory, your blood sugar, and fluctuating cortisol also causes hot flashes and night sweats. So the knee-jerk reaction for most practitioners when women complain of hot flashes, just throw more estrogen at them. And nothing could be further than the truth. Because I tell people what you eat, what you drink, how much you sleep, how much you exercise, the stress you're under and the toxins you're exposed to, all of these affect your hormones. And another one that really runs the show is thyroid. Regulates your metabolism, your weight, your energy, your temperature. It's the gas pedal. And the sad part is most practitioners only test one thing about thyroid: TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, that comes from the pituitary gland, and it's a feedback loop to the thyroid gland. But one number doesn't tell it all. You need the actual hormone made in the thyroid, which is T4, and you need what T4 is less active and is converted to the more active form T3 in your liver, in your muscles, and in your nerve cells. Plus, antibodies can be made towards your thyroid, which can really start to slowly damage it. Therefore, all of these need to be tested. If your thyroid is off, everything is off. If cortisol is off, everything is off. And if your estrogen, progesterone are off, then it throws your cortisol and your thyroid off. So they all work together as a system, as a web. The thing that most people leave out is that your gut influences all of them. Your hormone system, your nervous system, and your immune system. You need your gut to digest, to absorb, and then to eliminate. Without the right nutrients, you can't make the hormones. Without the ability to absorb them, you can't make them. And hormones are going to break down, and so are other toxins and byproducts. And if you can't eliminate it, it's like your house is filled with garbage. It really interferes. And the players inside your gut, the microbiome, those bacteria, you could either have a good, healthy gut microbiome where they all talk to each other nicely and give nice feedback to your hormone system, your immune system, or your nervous system, or you can have a bad microbiome come in and take over. It's like a gang moved into the neighborhood and they disrupt everything. They take those very toxins that your body wants to get rid of them, breaks it off from the bile and the fiber, and you just reabsorb them. So it's all one web. Now let's get to the mistakes. If you do things in the wrong order, you can't put the roof on the house until the walls are up. And you can't put the walls up until you have a solid foundation. It's the same thing with how you get ready for hormones or replace hormones, or for anything having to do with your health, and for that matter. Hippocrates said, he's the father of medicine, thousands of years ago. He basically said, all disease begins in the gut. What happens? You go to the doctor, you say you have hot flashes, you're menopausal. Okay, here's hormones. Now you can get them like a vending machine. But nobody prepares you for them. You have to clear first. You cannot balance hormone in a body that is sluggish, toxic, or inflamed, because then you're unable to clear them. Then you're unable to process them. You're unable to allow those receptors to listen to them, because inflammation and toxins get in the way. They run interference. So clearing the gut, calming inflammation in the gut is one way that you have to start so that the hormones have a good place to land. The second thing is bile. Think of bile as a detergent. You couldn't wash your dishes and those greasy dishes or the greasy clothing without detergent, could you? That's what you need bile for. It breaks up the fatty deposits, allows you to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, and it binds to toxins to allow the stool to get rid of them. So no detergent, no digestion of fats, and it's very difficult to get rid of the toxins. Fiber is really important, and so are bowel movements. If you don't go daily and poop logs and snakes, it is like flushing a backed up toilet. Everything that you wanted to get rid of, not everything, but many things that you wanted, are just going to back up and go back into your system. It's not a pretty place to be. If you have all that going on, and then you throw hormones on top of it, are you going to get good results? Not really. So the other thing is, if the hormones are not in balance, so the first part and the first step is clear the gut, clear the toxins, clear the inflammation, clean it out, get ready. It's like preparing your walls for painting. If you have cracked, peeling wallpaper and paint over it, you are not going to get a smooth, lovely result. So prep the gut first and clear. And the next is the hormones. You can still have great hormone levels, but if they're not balanced with each other, you're going to have side effects. So, for example, I'm going to talk about the gut. I want to tell you a story about a patient that had absolutely perfect hormone levels. And she just always felt anxious and irritable and pressure and tired and headachy and bloating. And then I asked her, how are your bowel movements? She said, well, they're normal. Well, what's normal? Oh, she says, I go every 2 to 3 days. Once I got her going daily, pooping logs and snakes, she said, I never felt better. The symptoms that she was having all went away because she was moving out those toxins. She was clearing the inflammation. She was getting rid of the old breakdown products of hormones. And she said, I can't believe how good I feel now that I'm regular. All of those symptoms went away. It really was the traffic jam. So the other mistake is not balancing the hormones. I see many people going and getting one fixed dose of hormones. It's the same for everybody. Now, I could give the same dose of hormones to 20 people with the same blood levels, and they are all going to respond differently. Some people absorb them better, some people eliminate them better, some people process them better, but just giving one set dose may not work for everybody. It'll work for many people, but not for everybody. So each hormone can have a counter hormone. For example, estrogen is a gas pedal. Progesterone is the brake. If you have estrogen that is high, normal, and low, or low, either way, anyway, if you don't have enough progesterone to balance it, you are going to have signs of estrogen dominance. And we already spoke a little bit about that. Too much energy is anxiety, irritability, impatience, insomnia, growth of the breast, cysts of the breast, tender breasts, bleeding, spotting, growth of the uterine lining, which causes that, growth of fibroids, weight gain around the breast, hips, and thighs. So estrogen and progesterone must be balanced in order to work. And the other one was cortisol. We already know that fluctuating cortisol can cause symptoms like hot flashes. So adding estrogen to cover up for low or fluctuating cortisol is only going to add fuel to the fire because it's going to make weight gain, blood sugar swings, and anxiety and insomnia worse. Cortisol is a hormone that stores fat, releases blood sugar, then insulin will respond to the high blood sugar, and then the blood sugar will go low, and you get major mood swings and a roller coaster of blood sugar and fat storage. And I used to say, when people's cortisol is off, they feel fat, flabby, flaky, foggy, fatigued, or forgetful. So cortisol is a lifestyle hormone, and there are things that you can do to help cortisol. And if you give thyroid hormone to somebody with low cortisol, it's like beating a dead horse. You don't have the get up and go. And when you add thyroid, you need more cortisol, but you don't have any reserves. So it's trying to floor a car with no gas. This unmasks symptoms of low cortisol, and you'll get fatigue, weakness, dizziness, low blood sugar, and low blood pressure. That's why all these hormones have to be measured together, and you can't go by numbers alone. Estrogen without enough progesterone gives those symptoms of estrogen dominance. Cortisol, too high or too low, can really influence your thyroid, your estrogen, and your progesterone. So we had somebody, I'm going to call her Elizabeth. During her premenstrual phase, She said she was a different version of herself. Her kids would tiptoe around her. She'd get angry and irritable and couldn't sleep, and she was out of control. We found out that she wasn't ovulating. She had high estrogen and almost no progesterone to balance it. Her testosterone was low and her cortisol was high. This will definitely make you gain weight, have mood swings, and brain fog, the top 3 symptoms where people come to see me. Once we balanced her hormones, gave her some progesterone, a little bit of testosterone, targeted her nutrients, got her sleeping, she was calm and felt like herself again. That's why we have to look at the whole picture and not just do one knee-jerk hormone replacement. Mistake number 3 is trusting one single lab. We're dynamic human beings where we change hour to hour, day by day. So we talked already about TSH being not the full picture of thyroid. What you must ask for is all of the thyroid players. TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, free T4, because only free hormone gets into the cells, free T3, which is converted from T4 and is the most active player that actually gets into the nucleus and it can turn on your metabolism, as well as reverse T3, which can block it. If you're under any distress, reverse T3 will go up. It's like putting gum inside the keyhole where you can't get the key in and get in and unlock the door. And another thing to test are thyroid antibodies, anti-thyroglobulin and anti-TPO antibodies. The problem with TSH is there's a very wide range. So if you're at either end, you're told you're normal, but you feel anything but. Another mistake is when practitioners try to measure estrogen and progesterone. We want to measure them when they're at their peak, usually day 19 to 22, which is after ovulation, when you've already ovulated and you're making progesterone. The problem is that some people's periods are irregular and the timing is important. So if you measure at the wrong time, you may not get the information you want. And then in perimenopause, things are very unpredictable. You can measure 1 month and feel good, and then the next month you feel angry and irritable and sleepless, and you feel completely out of control. And when people just tell you, oh, well, your labs are normal, feel dismissed, helpless, hopeless, and sometimes extremely angry. Now, I've had a person, for example, who came in and she had very strange symptoms during her period. She would get palpitation, crackling joints, headaches, and weird electrical sensations. And these are real. These are documented in the literature. They're not common. So people thought she was crazy. And I measured her hormones, and of course, the first time they came back, day 19 to 22, they were normal. I asked her, was this a good month? And she said, this happened to be a good month. I don't know why, but it was a good month. I said, let's do it. Next time you're feeling those symptoms, let's measure at that time. Well, she did, and of course, her estrogen was normal, but her progesterone was so low that there was no balance. And that's why sometimes you have to measure more than once. Don't trust one lab value. Mistake number 4 is trying to push through. When you're exhausted and you can't sleep and you're trying to exercise even more when you're completely depleted because you can't stand that belly fat anymore. Your body changed the rules and you don't know why. All the things that used to work just don't work anymore. I tell people what you eat, what you drink, how much you sleep, how much you exercise, the stress you're under, the toxins you're exposed to, all of these are going to affect your hormones. These must be looked at, and you cannot always power through. If your progesterone is low, nothing is going to bring that up except that the off chance that you happen to have an egg left or a very healthy egg left that's going to ovulate and make it. And when your thyroid is low, you have to fix all the other things as well, because otherwise you are going to have problems. So testing the hormones together makes the most sense. And the 5th thing is to have the habits that keep you healthy overall. This is not just about hormones. This is about the rest of your life. How are you going to age? Aging is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And it's not how old you are, it's how you are old. You can age like jumping off a cliff, or you can have a gradual decline. We're all going to age. There's no way you're going to stop it. But hormones are released in a rhythm, and they regulate other hormones. So the master clock is the cortisol, melatonin, the light dark. So when you wake up in the morning and get some light and movement, this is when cortisol should be the highest, and that's why you want to wake up, get some light and movement to help keep the body in the natural rhythm. And when evening comes around, start dimming the lights, block blue light, slow down. That's not when you go and do your high intensity interval training and watch horror films that get your heart beating and start reading the emails that get you upset, because it's going to interfere with your sleep. So you want to take care of the biggest challenges during the day and then slow down in the evening. Because if that master clock is off, the other clocks are going to be off. The kidneys filter at night, your brain washes its tau and Alzheimer's plaques out. When you sleep in deep sleep, you release growth hormone. So if you had clocks going off at all different times, the hormones don't know when to release. You're out of sync. And the biggest things that keep you out of sync or late night snacking and bright light at night. Eating less and moving more. Again, against that rhythm, when you're depleted and your thyroid is low or your cortisol is low, you can no longer push through. You can't eat less and move more unless you take care of those other things, because you will burn out. Actually, over-exercising can raise cortisol, especially if you're trying to over-exercise when you're not eating enough. It breaks down muscle, and then it breaks down bone, and then you get the 3 F's: falls, fractures, and frailty. Eat more protein, get weight-bearing exercise, but make sure your body is able to sustain that. So not enough protein and no resistance training is going to make you lose muscle, which will make you lose bone. Then you lose balance, you fall, you fracture, and you become frail. Muscle building is what's important to prevent frailty, to burn your calories. It is the organ of longevity, and it's going to affect you for decades on end. The symptoms that you're experiencing, think of them as your check engine light. Don't cover them up. Don't cover up the sleep disorders by taking sleeping pills, or the anxiety by taking anti-anxiety pills. Find the root cause. Because my story was that I didn't know I was in perimenopause. In my 40s, I was anxious, I was irritable, I couldn't sleep. I was losing my hair, gaining weight. I blew up relationships. I quit a job that I loved because my family was in dire need of my help, and I couldn't keep all the plates spinning at once. I didn't realize how depleted I was and how off my hormones were. And then once I got my family in order and I went to somebody who specialized in perimenopause, she gave me progesterone. It was like the clouds parted and the sun came out, and I could think again. I could sleep again. I was calm. I wasn't irritable, and I felt like myself again. It was what changed my practice. It's why I tell people, get your hormones balanced first before you make big decisions. Don't let your hormones do the talking. Get them balanced first, because even if you're doing everything right, because I taught health and wellness, for goodness sake, I did everything right, but everything was turning out wrong because I could not take progesterone. That's why I couldn't sleep, and then I was irritable and had brain fog and tried to push through when I really should have just taken care of the progesterone. But those days we didn't talk about that. I didn't know it. This is my bandwagon. This is my passion, to support you in getting the help that you need and putting all the pieces together. Because just throwing hormones at a toxic, inflamed, sluggish body does not work. So get balanced first, then make your decision. My method is the clear, balance, and thrive method. So you clear out the toxins and the inflammation. You test, you don't guess, you balance the hormones, and then you thrive by choosing the habits that help you with longevity. So what you do today: clear, get your bowels moving, hydrate, move, get some fiber, eat clean, get your bile flowing by having healthy fats and having bitter greens or bitters, and balance. Get all your hormones tested at once, and the full thyroid panel, TSH, free T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies, reverse T3. Make sure the timing is done correctly. And Thrive. Get at least 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Do some strengthening exercises. Get morning light, dim the light at night to reset the system. Don't snack at night or have bright light at night. So moving these small levers in the right order can make all of the difference in the world. After 30 years or more than 30 years doing this, I've seen people who do well initially and then somewhere down the line they fail. And I've heard this before. I've tried everything. I hear you. May have tried everything. See you in the next video. Perhaps not in the right order, or perhaps not all at the same time. You cannot handle this one piece at a time. It's a web. So I hear you. The other thing is maybe I'm just too old. It's not age. Again, aging is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Your body is asking to be understood. These symptoms are a cry for help. And you're not too old. I've had patients, even in their 90s, do better. So you took this first step by listening to this video. And I invite you to take the female hormone quiz. It's free. I'll put it in the show notes. So first step, find out which hormone is out of balance. Stop guessing. Take the hormone quiz. It's just a few minutes and it's going to give you an idea of where to start. I appreciate your time and efforts in listening. Thank you. I know you're tired and busy, and I want you to feel good again. You deserve to feel good again. I'm Dr. Lorraine Maita. I'm here to support you so you can get your life back.